Donald Trump's 2016 presidential road to victory was paved through Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. And tomorrow, Sherrod Brown, the Democratic senator from Mansfield, Ohio, is set to launch his Dignity of Work tour, bringing his working-class progressive message to Iowa, to New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina, fueling 2020 speculation. Asked last week whether he plans to run for president, Brown said, "We will make that decision in the weeks ahead." But given the Democrats' stinging defeat in those Great Lakes states, and given Sherrod Brown's commanding victory in that state, Donald Trump won by 8 points in 2016, Democrats have got to ask, is Brown the guy that can bring the Midwest states back into the fold? For more, I'm joined right now by Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio. Thank you, sir. Senator, earlier today, three of the president's top intelligence officials, including FBI Director Christopher Wray, CIA Director Gina Haspel, and Director of National Intelligence Dan Coats, presented an update to the Senate Intelligence Committee about their assessment of global threats. At times, they directly contradicted President Trump. Let's watch.
While ISIS is nearing territorial defeat in Iraq and Syria, the group has returned to its guerrilla warfare roots while continuing to plot attacks and direct its supporters worldwide. ISIS is intent on resurging and still commands thousands of fighters in Iraq and Syria.
And we have won against ISIS. We've beaten them, and we've beaten them badly.
North Korea will seek to retain its WMD capabilities and is unlikely to completely give up its nuclear weapons and production capabilities because its leaders ultimately view nuclear weapons as critical to regime survival.
We've made a lot of progress that has not been reported by the media, but we have made a lot of progress as far as denuclearization is concerned. Things are going very well with North Korea.
Not only have the Russians continued to do it in 2018, but we've seen indication that they're continuing to adapt their model and that other countries are taking a very interested eye in that approach.
I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be.
Senator, this is pretty disquieting. I mean, the fact that the President of the United States doesn't buy the information given to him by our top intelligence people on ISIS, he says it's gone. They said it's alive and dangerous, even in that area down there in Iraq and Syria. North Korea is dangerous. Trump seems to think everything's calm up there. And Russia is still interfering with our elections.
Well, you see a couple things on this show that you talk about a lot, Chris. This president clearly has trouble with the truth over and over and over again. He knows he's lying. He lies about all kinds of things. And the other thing is he's always a president who wants to distract from what other things are happening. For instance, a big part of the government shutdown is the president demonizes immigrants, so you're not thinking about how he betrays workers in Youngstown, Ohio, and he won't engage when GM says they're going to close a plant with 5,000 workers. I mean, consistently, the president tries to distract from the things that are not going well, so that we talk about immigrants, or we talk about the caravans, or we talk about things abroad where he brags generally in a way that's simply not true.
No argument here. Thank you. Donald Trump was elected on the promise, however, that his administration would refrain from stupid wars and reckless regime change. Let's watch.
They've dragged us into foreign wars that have made us less safe. Our new foreign policy is going to always put America first.
Unlike my opponent, my foreign policy will emphasize diplomacy, not destruction. Sometimes it seemed like there wasn't a country in the Middle East that Hillary Clinton didn't want to invade, intervene in, or topple.
We will abandon the policy of reckless regime change.
That's what I liked about his campaign. Despite that, the Trump administration last week officially recognized an opposition figure as the acting president of Venezuela. And yesterday, the president's national security advisor, John Bolton, startled reporters when he appeared in the White House briefing room with a yellow pad that had a scribbled line on it that read, 5,000 troops to Colombia. When asked about the note, the White House told reporters that all options were on the table. That language, Senator, all options on the table, is scary. It's the kind of neocon talk, and it's been brought into this White House, if not by Trump personally, by this character, John Bolton, who does want to invade every country in sight. What do you make of this? What happened to the guy who said no more stupid wars?
Yeah, and the clip Trump himself used the word reckless. And this behavior in Venezuela is reckless and irresponsible. You don't start off by in any way threatening military action. You work with your allies. Another thing the president rarely does, whether it's tariffs or whether it's working in Iran or whether it's working on any kind of international diplomacy, the president rarely works with Canada and the EU and our allies around the world. And this is a time we want free and fair elections in Venezuela, of course, and we bring our allies into this not with threats of military action, but with good diplomatic skill. And that's the way to move forward in this. I mean, you look at the president's views of institutions that we believe in, from NATO to things such as the Paris Climate Agreement, all of those kinds of things that we should be part of, and this president has pushed away, obviously.
Let me ask you about a Democratic proposal. Senator Warren, your colleague from Massachusetts, is talking now about a wealth tax on people that have wealth of over $50 million. What do you make about that approach for the Democratic Party?
Well, I think you're going to see a lot of those kinds of proposals. Clearly, we need to make the wealthiest 1% pay more. Look at what the Trump tax cut. The Trump tax cut provided 70% of the benefits in the $1.5 trillion tax cut went to the wealthiest 1%. So there's good evidence and good reason to do that. But it's the other end of it's what matters. That matters. But what really matters is where these dollars are spent. Are you spending it on infrastructure? Are you spending on medical research? Are you spending on public education? I met with Ohio school board members today, about 25, 30 of them, and we're talking about the Individual Disability Education Act, that it's so underfunded from the federal government, and these schools are struggling financially to take care of disabled children, which they want to do, but they simply aren't getting the federal support. So when we do a better tax bill and a better tax system in 2021 with, I hope, a Democratic president, Democratic Senate, Democratic House, one of the things we do is a fairer tax system. We roll back a lot of these corporate tax cuts that have gone to companies and giving incentives to outsource jobs and given big tax cuts to the rich. We make a fairer tax system, and the revenue obviously should go to infrastructure and those kinds of things in education and health care.
Well, I'm with you on that. If it matters, I'm with you, because I think the infrastructure betrayal, and that's what I call it, a betrayal by this president. He said he was going to do it. He spent the money in the tax cuts, and that $1.5 trillion went to people at the top and corporations to buy back stock, which all it did was screw the workers and fire people. Let me ask you about your tour. It clearly is tracking the tour of the early caucuses and primaries starting in Iowa, then going to New Hampshire, then South Carolina, Nevada, California. Tell us what you want to try to find out on that trip.
Well, when you love your country, you fight for the people who make it work. And I'm concerned that the message I want to come out of this is I want whoever the Democratic nominee is to make the centerpiece of their campaign the dignity of work. And you talked at the outset of the show about winning Ohio, and a state that Trump won by almost double digits. Too many Democrats, I think, look at the electorate as you either talk to the progressive base, and I've been a progressive from voting against the Iraq War to supporting marriage equality for 20 years, all that. You either talk to the progressive base or you talk to working class voters, and you got to do both. And I want the dignity of work to be the centerpiece there. And that, we've seen, Chris, for a couple of decades now, people are working harder, corporate profits are up, executive compensation's exploding, productivity is up, yet workers' wages are flat. And one of the central parts of the next presidency and the next Congress needs to be focusing on work, so when people work hard, they actually get ahead. And that simply is not happening enough in this country. And that needs to be the message for any Democrat who runs in 2020.
I'm thinking about the campaign poster right now, and I'm thinking about what would look good. And I'm thinking about your name, which is a very common American name, Brown. And I think about another name that's pretty common, Harris. And I'm wondering whether Harris Brown or Brown Harris looks good to you, because both of you guys are progressives. You're from different parts of the country, probably different tones to your ideologies, but probably similar in product in terms of pragmatics. What do you think of that ticket? What were the other?
I don't know. I'm not going to comment on ticket. I'll just say I like Kamala. I was amazed that somebody called her un-American today for a proposal she had on health insurance, that one of the billionaire candidates for president. So I stand with her on that. We've stood together on a number of issues, and I think very highly of her.
Do you think we're better off having a two-person choice for president so there's none of these straggling 5 or 6 million votes to go out there that really don't help any candidate? Well, they help a candidate sort of in reverse because they take away votes from some of those people would have voted for. Are we healthier with a two-party candidacy or with three candidates running with that third one spoiling somebody's win?
Well, I think we're healthier. When I see, when I think about a billionaire running as an independent, we tried a billionaire in the last election, and the billionaire won, and look where we are. So, if you're asking about an individual candidate, yes, I just think that I want a choice between Trump and a progressive Democrat. We're going to have that, and I think we've got to win the industrial Midwest, the heartland, the Great Lakes states, and the state you grew up, Chris, in, and the state that I represent, and we changed the country.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.